Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Machin Leiroa Online Smicha. One of the classical debates there are between parents and institutions and schools is, where is the main education of the child come from? Does education start at home, or the main education is what the child gets when he gets to school, and all the efforts the teachers and the school puts in, that's the primary education that the children get? Okay, that's a classical debate. I wanted to speak about this from the halachic perspective. There is a section of Shulchan Aruch in Yeridea called Hilchos Talmud Torah, and in Yeridea it's Siman Reish Mem Hey 245. And there in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, of course, we have the Hilchos Talmud Torah, where the Alter Rebbe discusses the obligations of a parent to educate the child and the obligation of the teachers when it comes about that you're using teachers. So let's speak about it straight from the strict letter of the law. The big Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber, says in Siman Reish Mem Hey Sif Aleph, mitzvah ala ish, mitzvahs asay ala ish lelamid es b'nai Torah. There is a mitzvah asay on each individual, on each parent, on each father. There's a discussion if the same obligation applies on the mother. There's a machlekes, a discussion in the Paiskim. But definitely a father has the chiyuv to teach his son Torah. V'im lo lamda aviv. However, if a father did not teach his son Torah for whatever reason, still, when the child becomes older, chayav l'lamid latzma, he has to teach himself. But there is a chiyuv for every father to teach his son Torah. And we know that from the pasuk in Shema, V'shinantam levanecha. 3 seifim later, the Mechaber says, Chayev lahaskir melamed livnoi lelamdai. There is a chiyuv to hire a teacher to teach your son Torah. And the Ramah goes on to say, it's because it's a mitzvah like any other mitzvah in the Torah. Bezdin had the chiyuv, if they saw somebody not investing time and energy and money to educate his children, they would force him, just like they have the power to force people to give tzedakah, to do any other mitzvah. And the times the Bezdin had the real powers, Bezdin would be koifa, would force a person to hire a malamed for his son. Now, if you realize the beginning of the halacha says, I have to do it myself. I have to teach the kid Torah. It says, V'shinantam levanecha. But then later, 3 sifim later, it says, I have to hire a malamed to teach my son Torah. And the obvious explanation would be, not everybody could be a teacher because people are busy with parnasa. You have to support a family, so you can't do both at the same time. So, what is the right way how to approach both of these things? First of all, I'd like to begin this conversation by telling you a phenomenal thought that is brought in the name of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld says, you know what Chazal say, that anybody reads the Shema and doesn't wear tefillin when he's reading the Shema, he's made Eid Sheker Ba'atzma. He's saying false testimony. Because in the Shema it says, Ukshartam Elo'isa Yodecha, that you have to tie the tefillin. If you're saying Shema, you're not wearing tefillin, you're saying false testimony. Says Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, let's extend it to another thing that says in the Shema. If there's anybody that is not teaching his children Torah, not investing time and effort to make sure that his kids get the proper education, then he's also false testimony, because in the same Shema it says V'shinantam levanecha, and he is not doing it. So it's equivalent to not wearing tefillin when you're saying Shema. Me'id Eida Sheker Ba'atzmai. So the question becomes, if it's such an important mitzvah, V'shinantam levanecha, then I have a chiyuv to teach it to my children. As I mentioned before, should plan A from every Jewish child, every Jewish household, should it be the father should teach, and he should put in all the effort that he should teach. If he can't manage, if he can't juggle teaching and finding a parnasa, so plan B is to give it away to a malamed. Or is the malamed, especially when the malamed is more capable, the malamed is is much better in teaching, has teaching skills, is that good? Because we know that certain mitzvahs that we do, you can't give away. Certain mitzvahs that we're obligated, you can't give away for other people to do for you. You got to do it yourself. If I have to wear tefillin, I can't ask somebody else to put on tefillin for me. So from the Ramah, as I mentioned, in the Ramah in Siv Dalid, it seems to apply that even though me'ikar hadin, the mitzvah is on the father to fulfill the mitzvah, nevertheless, lechatchila, to send the kid to a malamed, lechatchila, to send the kid to a good Jewish school, he fulfills his mitzvah. And not only that, some achronim add, whereas even if the obligation is fulfilled that way, it's not considered a mitzvah shebegufay, still there might be a benefit of mitzvah boy yosim b'shluchei. We know that a lot of mitzvahs that you could get done by somebody else, it's still preferable for you to get it done yourself. You should be involved better. Some say that in this mitzvah, it's not necessarily mitzvah boy yosim b'shluchei. And therefore, if you have a good malamed, it's just as long as he gets the job done, as good as you could get it, or even better, it's good, or even better, to send him to a yeshiva, send him to a cheder. Now, the question becomes, does that totally replace the mitzvah of the father? In other words, am I getting the job done by sending him to a cheder? So I want to speak about it from two angles. Angle number one is when he's younger. As a kid going to school, if I send him to school, could I feel good that it's getting done and I don't have to do anything? And let's ask the question at a little older: what happens once he's finished with school, once he's in yeshiva, once he's older? Does this mitzvah v'shinantem levanecha, is there a time limit to that mitzvah? Or as long as Baruch Hashem, the father, is alive and the child is alive, maybe this mitzvah of v'shinantem levanecha is ongoing. There's a phenomenal piece of history, a story. Chaim Kanievsky Olav Shalom writes that his father, the Steipler Goin, used to learn with him every Shabbos until the last Shabbos he passed away. Why? As a father and son, he writes, he felt he has a chiyuv of v'shinantem levanecha, and even though the father was older, and the Rebbe Chaim was definitely older, the father was definitely older, Rebbe Chaim was an older man, he was not a teenager, and still they learned together always to fulfill the mitzvah of v'shinantem levanecha. What we also find very interesting about the mitzvah of chinuch, of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, chinuch, educating a child for any other mitzvah, is a machlokes harishonim, if it's a mitzvah d'oraisa, a mitzvah d'rabbanan. A lot of opinion hold that chinuch, as long as a child is under bar mitzvah, every mitzvah to teach him to do the right thing is only midrabbanan. To teach a child at younger age, to make sure he gets taught, or to teach him yourself, even though he's still under bar mitzvah, everybody says that's a mitzvah d'oraisa because v'shinantem levanecha. Now, is that at this young age he's not a bar chiyuv? To teach him how to do any other mitzvah, it's only chinuch. To teach him at this age, Torah is a mitzvah d'oraisa. V'shinantem levanecha. Why is it that way? So the Aruch HaShulchan says a beautiful halacha. He says, whereas every other mitzvah is just to train him, okay, slowly let him get used to the fact how to do it later. Teaching a child Torah now, even though he's underage and he's not a bar chiyuv, if you don't teach him now, he's gonna grow up to be a loose cannon. He'll never have that zest, that interest in Torah. So what he's doing now as a youngster is a chiyuv min Torah for the father. So many achronim say that even if you hired a malamed for your son, that doesn't take away the responsibility of the father learning with the kid Torah anyways. The Pella Yoyitz in Erech Torah, he writes like this: Ki alimud im aviv bebayis hu ha'ikar. What the father learns with the son at home, that is the main chinuch. Lilmoid im benoi b'chol eishu panui. To teach the son and to actually train the son that any spare moment you have, you're supposed to learn Torah v'koicha shel hakartan. V'hi to'elas gedola lahatzlachas haben bilimudoi. So again, as the Pella Yoyitz underlines, that this is this is ikar. Halimudim aviv is ikar. Of course, maybe you're getting the mitzvah done v'shinantam levanecha by hiring a malamed, but it doesn't take away that the father should still spend time learning with his child. And it's brought also in Svarim that it doesn't really add up, because a person will invest so much money on buying a nice esrog. A person will invest so much money on buying a nice tefillin and a nice mezuzah. And this is a one-time thing, whereas a mitzvah that you could invest time and effort and it really make your child grow and advance in Yiddishkeit and Limud Torah and Chassidishkeit and whatever you want, we find that people are, they'll easily spend hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars for a mezuzah, and they won't just spend the 5-10 minutes, a half an hour to invest time, which is more than money, and you'll get the peiros much greater. So it's brought in Svarim, Lachein Hayori Dvar Hashem, those who are God-fearing, the Zoritz b'mitzvah zu should be very careful in this mitzvah. The Yalamed b'noi l'chol ha'pachas shah achas b'chol yoim, v'chol ha'moisef hareza meshubach. So that's to show you that even if you getting the mitzvah, the obligation done by sending him to a cheder, still it doesn't take away from the father's responsibility and making the child grow in Yiddishkeit, or a strong feeling in Yiddishkeit and Limud Torah, where we find another halachic proof to this. B'chlau, every other mitzvah, how much does a person mechuyev to invest to get the mitzvah done? So Hamavazvez al Yavazvez Yosem Mechaimish. It says if you want to spend a lot of money and to do the mitzvah min mufchar, he doesn't have to give away more than a fifth of his earnings. A fifth is the maximum. Now, there are exceptions. The Alter Rebbe speaks in Tanya. I know that. But this dry letter of the law is Hamavazvez al Yavazvez Yosem Mechaimish. It comes, however, to the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, the mitzvah of Vishinantim Levanecha. It speaks about how much is a person allowed to spend to hire a teacher. So when you look in Siv Vav, in the Shulchan Aruch, it says, Haya minig be'ir shalekayach memamid tenekas schar. If there was a custom in the city that you hire a teacher and you pay him, chayev v'lolamdei b'schar ad sheyikra Torah shebiksav kulo. You have to pay him. You have to pay him until your son knows the whole Chumash. But you don't have to pay him to teach him Mishnah and Gemara. And from the Shulchan Aruch, it says that even when it's dechikole, even if the person doesn't really have too much money, you have to go out of your way. And some are medayik from this Shulchan Aruch, you even have to collect to make sure that your son gets a proper chinuch. You hear what the halach is? V'shinantam levanecha is a mitzvah like any other mitzvah. Any other mitzvah, a person is only mechuyev ad chaimish. Hamavazvez al yavazvez yoisem b'chaimish, up to a fifth. Over here it says, even if the chikolei, even if you have no, your parnasa is not good, and you're going to have to fundraise for this, there is a chiyuv to make sure your kid learns. Now, look closely in the Shulchan Aruch. That's that the kid should get the foundations of Chumash. But once he got Chumash, to teach him Torah Shebal Peh, the halacha says for Torah Shebal Peh means once you're talking about Mefarshim and Mishnayos and Gemara, over there the regular halacha of not being Mevazvev Yosem Mechaimish applies. However, of course, it's like any other mitzvah. You're not obligated to give more than a chaimish, but we all know what the Gemara Masechta Beitza says, that even though it's tough, even though tuition money is a lot, but al yehei, Rabbeinu Yoinen is Sava Ois Tazayin writes, al yehei leiv ha'adam tsar b'schar limud. A person should not feel bad about the tuition money that he pays for his son learning Torah, and he should not try to find tricks to get around it. El yimser, this is the Lashon HaShalah. The Shalah says, Yimser al zeh ha'av nafshay gufoy u'ma'odoi. He should totally give himself over and spend a lot of money, whatever it takes for his kids to have a proper education. And it actually is even brought in Tzavos, in Eira Chaim Siman Tov Yud Tes, that you should actually try to pay the Schar Limud on time. And the Medrash Tanchum and Parshas Sav writes, in the merit that a person gives money for his children's education, and it's a Kabbalah. There's a Mekubal Kabbalah from Tavas Rabbeinu Yoina, that anybody who pays Schar Limud Ba'ayin Tova, his children will be successful in their learning. And of course, we don't have to go further than what the Gemara says in Masechta Beitza, Daf Tazayin Amud Aleph, that all your person's sustenance, Parnasa, is Katzav Leim Rosh Hashanah. It's told to him already Rosh Hashanah how much he deserves to get. But Chutz Ma'etzah Shabbosis v'Yontiv, besides what you expend for Shabbos and Yontiv, and for whatever you spend for Talmud Torah, for whatever money you give into tuition for your children, im hoisif ma'isif mulay. Whatever you spend, you'll make the Mulmayla, they make sure you get it back, and you'll be increased, and it's only a bracha for you and for your family.